everyone. I wanted to speak to you guys today about the importance of nitrogen in the atmosphere. Did you guys know that nitrogen composes 78% of the air around us? It also plays a pretty crucial role in the organic molecules such as DNA and RNA, and also in proteins. So nitrogen can also be turned into ammonia, nitrite, or organic nitrogen for plant and animal use. Nitrogen's presence in the soil is also really crucial for plant growth. The nitrogen cycle is the process of the nitrogen progressing from the atmosphere to the biosphere to the geosphere. My colleagues Ilian and Jacob will be going into further detail about these processes.
Hello everyone. As Alexander just said, nitrogen is a very important element in our daily lives. Nitrogen is a key factor controlling the nature and diversity of plant life and their productivity, population dynamics of animals, and ecological cycles like the cycling of carbon and soil mineral. 78%. I know, that's a lot. But now I'm going to explain the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle starts with fixation, where bacteria turns nitrogen into ammonium. Then nitrification, where bacteria changes ammonium into nitrates that are absorbed by plants. Assimilation is the process when the nitrates that are being absorbed are used in amino acids, nucleic acids, and chlorophyll. Then ammonification, where composers like fungi and bacteria turn the nitrogen back into ammonia, and they restart the cycle. There's also that extra nitrogen that gets put back out in the air, which is called denitrification. My colleague, Jacob, will explain more about the aquatic nitrogen cycle and the consequences when there are imbalances.
Similarly to the nitrogen cycle on land, in an aquatic ecosystem, nitrogen-containing compounds come mainly from the atmosphere, as shown here, and from organic matter, as shown here. These nitrogen compounds from organic matter are organic pollutants such as animal waste and decaying organic matter, which is dead animals and plants. Nitrogen from organic pollutants are often in the form of ammonia, NH3, or ammonium, NH4. This ammonia is then oxidized by nitrifying bacteria known as Nitrosomonas into nitrite, NO2, right here, which is then converted into nitrate by another nitrifying bacteria known as Nitrobacter, as shown here. This nitrite and nitrate can return to the atmosphere as nitrogen gas, N2, or the nitrate will be used as fertilizer for plants, and these plants will then be eaten by animals in the area. When these animals excrete waste or die, the nitrogen is expressed again as ammonia, effectively restarting the cycle. Now, the Gulf of Mexico is an example of a location in which eutrophication is currently occurring. Hypoxia in these areas is out of control as fish continue to die out and the ecosystem is dominated by plant matter. Watershed allows the overuse of fertilizers in the USA and other surrounding areas to cause a great increase in the amount of nitrogenous compounds in the Gulf of Mexico. So, if the use of fertilizers to feed people in the USA is directly causing there to be an abundance of dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico, is it morally acceptable to use these fertilizers?
Hi everyone, welcome to Scientific Daily. Today we're going to be talking about the issues with the Gulf of Mexico and the dead zones due to fertilizer runoff. So it's been estimated that approximately 40% of the United States seafood supply comes from the Gulf of Mexico, where seafood and tourism industries have apparently lost an estimated $82 million a year due to this disruption in the nitrogen cycle. Local stores and restaurant owners must pay more for the imported goods, such as shrimp and Kroger, due to the lack of the resources. Furthermore, this leads to the increase in price for local consumers as well, where they must pay more for the resources that were once abundant, but now must be imported. So now let me please welcome our special guest, Kurt Carmichael. Kurt Carmichael has been fishing in the Gulf of Mexico for over 15 years. We've invited him here today to give us further insight on the dead zone situation in the Gulf. Nice to meet you, Mr. Carmichael.
Nice to meet you, Ms. Rivers.
So, how have you been?
Good. How about you?
I've been well, thank you. How about in terms of your business? How have things been with that?
Well, I've been working for quite a long time in this region, and I've seen a difference in the fish population. It's drastic. It's a drastic difference.
Really? Could you possibly expand on the effects,
Well-
specifically on your life and your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, fish are so scarce nowadays when I'm fishing. Often a decent amount of my daily catch have things like scale deformities,
Oh,
which are not good for my reputation and the reputation of my business. I also have less time with my family. Like I had to take another job. I have 2 jobs now
oh my gosh.
to support my family.
Well, I know that studies have shown that agriculture and the use of fertilizers are possibly responsible for such a drastic change in your business. How does that make you feel?
Well, I feel like it's a very selfish thing from the farmers, from the agricultural industry.
Yeah.
Because in order to increase their profits, mine has to suffer.
Yeah, that must be really difficult for you. So I don't know. I've heard that many local restaurants and store owners have had to get their resources imported or they have to buy it from you from an elevated price because it's so scarce for you to catch and it's so difficult for you. So
Well, I cannot blame them. I cannot blame them. Like, it's not my fault. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
But if it weren't for the farmers, many locals wouldn't only save money, but only like they would also support the local business.
yeah, very true. So on that note, I'd like to introduce a farmer from the Mississippi region, Joe Duck.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Nice to meet you. So Joe, how are you?
Business has been great. Demand for crops like corn have been increasing quite a bit.
Well, studies do show that corn is being used as biofuel, which is a great resource instead of harmful energy sources. I've been informed that your family has been farming in this area for quite some time.
Yes, actually. Farm's been in our family for over 4 generations.
Wow. Are you aware that the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico have approximately expanded to 6,474 square miles? Also, have you considered cutting down on nitrogen-based fertilizers in order to help the aquatic life in the Gulf?
Yes, I have been thinking and hearing about the growth of the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. Obviously, I've been trying to think about a solution, but fertilizers are just so crucial to crop growth. It would be difficult for me to make any money to support my family if I were to cut down or stop using it at all.
Very good point. Well, I do acknowledge the fact that agricultural exports provide approximately $100 billion annually to business activity in the U.S., which is very important, obviously, and also provides over 22 million jobs, also very important. And let's not forget that consumers spend approximately $547 billion on food originating from the U.S.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Of course.
I don't really think that I should have to lose time with my family for the sake of another business productivity or profit. I also think that it's wrong to like imbalance the ecosystems. I mean, this is the only fish that I caught today. The only one.
That's
And I spent 4 hours.
Well, on that note, folks, let's go to our philosophy experts so that they can give us further insight on this moral dilemma.
Hello there, I'm John Smith, and I'm here to tell you about how important nitrogen and phosphate-based fertilizers are to crop yields, even though these fertilizers have devastating effects on the environment. We must understand why farmers are actually using them, and here's the practical standpoint. According to studies conducted on grain yields in various states across the U.S., such as Oklahoma and in Kansas, the removal of nitrogen and phosphate-based fertilizers would decrease the yield by 40 to even 60%. In other words, half the amount of crops farmers produce is thanks to fertilizers. Now, nitrogen-based fertilizers are being used more efficiently. In fact, nitrogen use efficiency has increased at least 35% in the past 25 years, which means the less fertilizers are required to produce the same amount of crops. Advancements in the fields of modern genetics and agronomic management have contributed to the increase in this efficiency. Now, my colleagues will talk more in detail about this.
It's theorized that the main source of the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico are the farmland surrounding the Mississippi River due to watershed, causing fertilizer pollutants to enter the Gulf and therefore disrupt the nitrogen cycle. In total, the Mississippi farms and ranches produce around $6.88 billion out of an industry worth $547 billion, whereas the seafood industry in the Gulf of Mexico produces approximately 40% of the country's seafood supply, as previously mentioned. Since the Mississippi region covers such a minor portion of the agricultural business compared to the Gulf's seafood source, it can be concluded that limiting the use of nitrogen-based fertilizers for surrounding farmers would result in less disutility and thus a higher net utility for the country overall. Therefore, by Bentham's utilitarian calculus, the necessary course of action would be to reduce or eliminate the use of fertilizers in these regions.
Later on, John Stuart Mill coined a utilitarian concept known as lexicality, where certain pleasures are of a degree greater than others. Accordingly, we could argue that the joy given by certain foods are of a degree greater than the joy given by others. Seafood products, such as those from the Gulf of Mexico, are often cardinal components of high society dinners, such as shrimp and caviar, whereas agricultural foods, such as corn, are simply components of an average dinner, not necessarily causing much joy or otherwise. Therefore, seafood lexically creates more utility than agricultural foods.